You're listening to The Secrets of Sacred Art, where we unearth the hidden treasures, history, and deeper meanings in religious and sacred art. We're your hosts, Alix Murray
and Kathryn Laffrey. Welcome to episode 12, Architecture and the Liturgy. In this episode, we'll be exploring the art and images and parts of a Catholic church. For a fuller experience, you can watch this show on the SQPN YouTube channel, where you can see all the images we're discussing on the show. Please follow The Secrets of Sacred Art in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. You can find us on social media at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, on X at SQPN, or on Instagram at StarQuest Network. So, Alix, you ready to learn about parts of the church? Although you probably know all of them.
Well, thank you very much. No, I don't know all of them, but I know a little bit. And I am really looking forward to this because I think it's an interesting subject. I think for people today, it can be a difficult subject to talk about, not because of lack of knowledge, but I think because there's a lack of understanding of what the church is and why it's here, the building.
Yeah.
And
it is very difficult.
It is. And I think sometimes people can, because of course, this is the power of art. This is the power of something that's beautiful and how it touches us personally. I think when sometimes you go through something and the person's idea of what it should be doesn't line up with what it ought to be, that can be quite difficult and sometimes a little bit painful for people to deal with. And so one of the things that we're hoping to do with this whole podcast, but this is going to be an introduction and just gently bring people in to get a greater understanding of what the building you're worshiping in should look like and why it looks like that. It's not an arbitrary thing.
And so I think the why is really what helps fuel the what it should. A lot of times when I've had friends who have been in the faith a long time, and they'll just ask me, well, you during all these, sacred art classes or learning about different things, can you tell me why my church has this? Or is there a reason why that candle is here instead of there? I've seen it in different places, in different churches. And so it's good to have an understanding of a little bit of what happened and why it happened. And I thought a good place for us to start would be, we're going to go right to canon law.
Yeah, that's a good place to start.
Good place to start. So I just wanted to see, okay, what does it say? What do we have? So canon law 1214 says, by the term church is understood to be a sacred building designated for divine worship to which the faithful have the right of entry for the exercise, especially the public exercise of divine worship. So that's what canon law has to say. I was reading an article that went a little deeper in thought with this, and they said, kind of pulled out three primary elements that the Catholic Church should have, so people know when they're looking at it, church is a church. This is a Catholic church, This is a Catholic church. And those three elements are verticality. It's got to raise you up. Or feel like you're touching the heavens. Permanence, which I think has got lost a couple of times. That building's got to look like it is there for eternity. And then the iconography, the symbolisms, layout, design needs to fit with what the church teaches. Exactly. You can't put a big old bunny rabbit on top instead of a cross, Exactly. And I think it's also these elements they speak of the truth of the church. Yep. The verticality, I think that's a big thing. It really does make a difference if you walk into a church and you literally have to look up and you look around and there's this big open space. Yeah. Things really change. It mentally, I think. Oh, here we go. Let's take a look at some verticality here. Yes. So we have two very lovely churches here. I think you recognize one of them, maybe both of them?
I do. I only recognize the one that my auntie said needed a power wash.
You want to tell us where you found this little treasure?
Okay, so this church on the right, I think I'm looking at it properly, the older one with the two bells at the top, that is a church in Oros in southern France. And we went to France this Christmas, and this is where we attended Mass, and it's in the middle of a field. It's the church is about 1,000 years old. And I would love for us to, in fact, I will do some research, because this church has a fascinating story, really, really fascinating story. But you can spot these churches all over the French landscape. You look at that from a distance and you know it's a church. And it's because of that verticality. Yes. And it just goes straight up to heaven.
Now, the other's also in France, known for its stained glass windows.
Oh, yeah. Oh, gosh. Oh, my gosh. See, I'm like so fixated on the other one that we just went to. So this is, and then there's that other one. No,
Yeah,
so this is, so this is Notre Dame.
Yeah. And
Correct.
Chartres.
Yes.
Yep.
Oh, no. Chartres Cathedral. Oh,
Chartres Cathedral. Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah. Oh, why? Yeah. No, Notre Dame looks totally, it does look different, but yes.
A little more urban.
Little more. And of course, this is a fascinating cathedral, Chartres Cathedral. You know, there's a major pilgrimage to Chartres every year. It's like 6,000 young people tramp through through France. Can you imagine?
I would.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. But I think they want it. It's like mostly young people, and so just traipsing through the.
What are you saying, Alix?
The wild. I know. I don't know. Yeah, we could be at the front. You know, we don't want to like have all those old people with us, right?
You can chaperone.
Exactly. Yeah, probably. Yeah.
All right. So we got two more here to tie into our discussion last week.
Yes.
One of these is by our good friend, Pugin.
Good old Pugin.
Good old Pugin. And that's the one on the left. This is St. Giles.
St. Giles,
right?
Also known as Pugin's Gem.
Yes, this was his first Catholic church that he was commissioned to build or design.
Yeah. Yes.
And then the picture next to it is my picture that I took when I got to go see Durham Cathedral with Alix.
Yes. Oh, that was fun. That was such a fun time.
Because we had a lot of fun because we went all the way to the top of Durham Cathedral. A lot of stairs.
Yes. And like most towers, once you start going up, you have to keep going. Yeah, there's no turning around. Yeah.
But I'd say these two definitely show permanence.
Yes.
The stones are not going to go anywhere.
Exactly. And not only that, you know, of course, with Durham Cathedral, my gosh, that one is that 13th century, 12th or 13th century? We're going to be doing a podcast, a deep dive on all the fascinating things in Durham Cathedral.
Surface touch today.
Exactly. So, but the difference in the age is many, many centuries. And then of course, centuries dividing us today with these churches. And yet we know they're churches, they're beautiful, and they've become part of the landscape.
Yeah. They're so appealing.
Yeah.
And then these are two churches. The one on the left is one that I visited last year in March, and that's in New Jersey, and that's St. Hedwig. And I loved the look on this one, and I loved using it for the iconography of the church. It has the three doors at the entryway. You have the towers. You have a cruciform shape. It's saying over and over again, I'm a Catholic church. The stairs leading up to it.
And there's a sense of permanence. There's that sense of permanence. That's not going anywhere.
Yeah. And it's neat to compare that with Holy Rosary in northern Michigan, because both these churches were established as Polish immigrant churches. The St. Hedwig in New Jersey still has a strong Polish immigrant community. They do masses in Polish. I actually attended a Polish mass. I didn't understand it all, but I knew what was going on. That's the beauty.
You understood the structure.
Church. I understood it, yeah.
Yeah.
And then Holy Rosary, that's where I attend on occasion, or when I'm visiting my parents, and again, a Polish community. And you can see how there's a continuity there in style and form.
Yeah.
And
there's a commonality. They might have different, I guess you could say they have different accents, but the same language.
Exactly. And I wanted to point out a great book that I just picked up, and it's a reprint of an old edition. I'm going to hold this up to the camera here. So this book was published in the 30s, and it's Churches and Their Plan and Furnishings. And the author, also an architect, and I think just an architect bug. I am an architect bug myself. I've never studied architecture or anything, but boy, I love drawing house plans, church plans, whatever. I love to just lay out plans. Yeah. But I loved what he said in this book. And he said that with regard to the material and form of sacred architecture, it is necessary to keep the liturgical prescriptions to ecclesiastical tradition and to the greatest extent possible to the laws of sacred art.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to, think about if you're designing a church.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And then one other great quote from the Catechism of the Catholic Church. This is from paragraph 1181. A church, a house, is a house of prayer in which the Eucharist is celebrated and reserved, where the faithful assemble, and where is worshipped the presence of the Son of God, our Savior, offered for us on the sacrificial altar for the help and consolation of the faithful. This house ought to be in good taste and a worthy place for prayer and sacramental ceremony. In this house of God, the truth and the harmony of the signs that make it up should show Christ to be present and active in this place. I love that last line. To show Christ is present and active in this place.
Yeah.
It shouldn't look like, a stodgy old museum or something like that. Yeah. Yeah.
And it shouldn't look like a swimming hall or something.
Yeah.
It should be a reverential place. Something that wants you to behave in a reverent way.
And then just to mix things up a little, we have a lot of Western European art. I have some different churches here. One is from Nagasaki, Japan. Lovely little postcard, hand-colored postcard of that church from Nagasaki. And then the other one is one of the oldest churches in the Philippines.
Wow. Yeah, look at that. It's different, but again, different accent, same language.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're seeing the verticality, the permanence. You're seeing that iconography in there.
Yeah, exactly. Do you know, I'm just curious, do you know if that church in Nagasaki, is it still standing?
Yes, it was rebuilt. It had been damaged during the bombing in World War II, but then was rebuilt.
Okay. In the same way, or did they?
In the same way, yeah.
Okay, excellent.
Maybe not exactly the same, but in the same way.
Maybe new wiring or whatever.
Yeah. So, but just like with all real estate, let me change slides here. Location.
Yeah. Wow. Yes, of course. I mean,
yeah. So a church is the city on a hill, or the New Jerusalem, which is also on a hill.
Yeah.
So churches need to be in high places with a sense of being fortified and protected sanctuary.
Yeah.
And look at these two beauties, are both in the same state of Wisconsin. I'm going to have to do a Wisconsin pilgrimage tour or something. There are so many wonderful places to see.
They really are beautiful.
Yeah, I've never been to the bigger picture where the Holy Hill, but after looking up, and I just wanted to, all I searched was Catholic Church on a hill. This was the first thing that came up. I was so excited. It's like, this is a place I want to go to. It's actually on the highest elevation in its county.
Is this something that is connected with a religious order? Do you know?
Yes, I think it's connected with Carmelites.
Okay. That's another thing. A lot of these churches are, when, they were built by religious orders, and I'm talking about a long time ago. Obviously, they were also built by the laity. They were built by the diocese. But when you have a religious order connected with a church, many, many times they're extraordinarily beautiful. And certainly with some of the religious orders that are really growing, some of them have this really, the problem everyone wants to have. They're outgrowing their buildings and their facilities, and they have to keep building and building and building. A lot of times with those kinds of religious orders, you find that the structure is permanent and it's beautiful, and people want to get involved in, and I'm talking about today, people, laity, if they know that there's a religious order and they're trying to do something really beautiful that expresses the realities and the truths of the church, it draws them in, and they want to become involved, and they use their talents and they use their resources to build something permanent, because they know it's something that's going to be there after they're gone. These are places, and it's always been like this. These are places where their great grandchildren can attend Mass. That's what, when the cathedrals and all of these other beautiful buildings, extraordinary buildings built in medieval times, where they, it's because they had that vision. And that's why you need to have the permanence. You have to have a vision of the future.
Yeah. And the fact that the churches are up in an elevated space draws you to them. At least it does for me. If I see a beautiful thing up on top of a hill, I want to figure out how to get on top of the hill and go see it.
Yeah.
And definitely had the privilege a couple years back when visiting my sister in Wisconsin. In La Crosse, Wisconsin, is the Shrine of Our Lady of Guadalupe. And that's the smaller picture on the right.
Oh, yeah.
And you see it from miles away because of the way the west side of Wisconsin has a lot of coulees and cliffs and things because of the start of the Mississippi and the Black River there. And they set this up on the hill beautifully. When you come to the visitor center, you have to drive a little uphill to get to just the entry. And then from there, you wind your way walking up the hill. And they have beautiful little shrines on the way. There's actually, if you want to go even farther up the hill, they have a rosary walk. And once you get up there, it's gorgeous. And I'll have a few slides on the inside as we keep going through.
Okay, good. Yeah.
So besides drawing you in visually from where it is and where it's located, the other way that the church should draw in is how it is connected to what's around it. Does it have a courtyard? Does it have a garden? Does it have a big plaza?
Yeah.
So you can see here a very familiar looking plaza there.
Yeah. Yes. Except with the arms reaching out to embrace the world. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny when I saw that, I always think of it as arms scooping you in. And it made me think about, the church is our mother. It's a mother church. And just like when a mom goes around gathering up her kids to come in the house, that's what it is. Come on in. It's, mother bringing you in.
Yeah.
And then good friend of mine that I met just last year at a conference, Marta, she runs Greenland Landscaping in Georgia. And she's been learning more about sacred art, and she does a lot of landscaping work for churches. She's like, I want to get more of the sacred art into the landscape work that I'm doing. flowers are pretty and flowers have meaning, but there's got to be a little more. And this image here of the labyrinth that she created for a church down in the Georgia area, and it's in Winder, Georgia. It's St. Anthony's Church. And the committee from the church asked her company to do a replica of the labyrinth from Chartres Cathedral.
Wow.
So that's out in their garden. And they purposely wanted to make sure that it was available not only for the church members, but that people in the community would want to come use it and contemplate and take some quiet prayer time.
Exactly. And when you're praying and walking a labyrinth, it is it's a very different experience, because it's almost like going on a mini pilgrimage, because it's not straightforward. Just like our lives aren't straightforward, right? If they were, I guess, why would we, it would be a boring life, but it wouldn't be, there would be no texture to our lives. And so having these labyrinths to go through and just prayerfully meditate on whatever it is, whether it's vocations, or if you're suffering through something, those kinds of things, and to have that available to you, the physicality of our faith is one of the, I just think it's a genius of God, to bring in all of these things. It's so important that that we're able to engage every part of ourselves in our faith. And a labyrinth, I have never prayed a labyrinth, but I would love to. I know there's one at Westminster Cathedral.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe I could just really be,
that sounds like we might need a deep dive on labyrinths.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes.
That would be a good. Yeah.
And that would be an excuse to go, do you know what? I really need to go back to France to go, just, it's for spiritual reasons.
Yeah.
I'll go to Chartres, and it's just for research and spiritual reasons. But yes, it's fascinating. What a wonderful job she's done. And what a great idea.
Yeah.
What a fantastic idea.
And then the smaller picture down in the center is a church nearby where I used to teach catechism class. And this is their second building. So their original building was one of those classic, actually it was a hand-me-down church that came out from the city of Grand Rapids to minister to the farm community that was growing. So they literally took down one building, moved it out to the farm country, and built a new one in downtown.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
So, but this is their second building. And what they did was the facade here kind of mimics the classic architecture of an old countryside church, but it's a little more contemporary. But I like that they added in front of the main doors a simple square courtyard that has entry points, one straight into the doors and on either side. And when I taught catechism there, when the kids first went over to the church for their first reconciliation that they would do, I had seventh graders, so it's not their first reconciliation, but but anyway, I would give them a tour of the church, and we had looked at pictures of other churches, and they're like, but our church doesn't look like those old churches. And it's like, that's okay. I want you to see the elements in your new church that's still following the traditions of the past. And when they realized that that little courtyard, that closed in porch is more than just a porch, it was like, oh, now I see the arms. It's gathering us in. So that was kind of neat. Yeah. Seventh graders are fun. But talking about layouts, this is what I used to share with the kids, actually. It's just kind of a good generic layout. We have St. Peter's, sort of an interior cutaway view, and the footprint of the church itself. And then just a simple layout of the church and how it represents our journey toward God.
Yeah, because it is a journey. I think that's the thing. It's something that every part of us needs to experience that and be reminded of that. And that's one of the things, that's one of the tasks a well-appointed church will accomplish.
Yeah. And even just the difference between, St. Peter's and this generic view, little slight differences, but still the same, happening. So you start with a narthex. That's kind of a welcome gathering area. At one point in time, it used to be where people who were thinking about joining the church would be out there. And then eventually they move in, because the next thing that happens is generally in the entry, there's the baptismal font, or at least holy water fonts. So the baptism is our entry into the church. It makes sense to see the baptismal font at the entry to the church.
Exactly.
And then we have the big long nave. We got to think about rowing the boat, because the nave is supposed to feel like the deck of a ship. We're all heading toward God, good Lord willing. That's where we should be heading, unless we get off course. And thankfully, to help us stay on course, along the nave is a good place to put confessionals.
Yeah, kind of like little lifeboats on either side.
Little lifeboats, exactly. That's a good way to think of it. Yeah. Either that or like, the little, someone's overboard, throw them a little safety line.
Like a little lifesaver or something. Yeah.
Lifesaver, yeah.
Yeah.
And then you can see as it works closer, you've got confirmation, you've got matrimony. And then, sorry, I'm looking at a really small picture. I gotta make this bigger so I can see you. I'm saying.
Yeah. So it's the extreme unction of life. So the various sacraments taking place in the church.
Yep. And then the Eucharist at the communion rail, which they're comparing to the veil of the temple, or the temple veil.
Yeah.
And then the priests within the sanctuary and holy orders. And there's the altar, which is the central. This is what it's all about. The church is built for the altar.
Yes.
That's what's happening here. This is the worship of, it's the source and summit of our faith, is that worship at the altar. And then that all culminates to the east in the apse. And guess what? No matter which way your church actually faces, that's liturgical east.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's kind of our general layout. And let's actually kind of take a stroll through. The first thing we're going to see, and here's another great layout. This one is by
Charles Borromeo.
Yeah.
So this is, and I guess we should say that the links will be in the show notes for this book. It looks like a really interesting book. It looks like something that would just be nice to flip through and just to get a better understanding of what's going on, because you're not just walking into a building. It's not just any old building, and it shouldn't look like any other building. It shouldn't look like anything else.
Yeah.
But the church.
Your church shouldn't look like a McDonald's. It shouldn't look like a theater. No. And it shouldn't look like a office building.
Exactly. And I know sometimes there can be some challenges. Do you know what I mean? And there were challenges in the beginning of the church when it first started, but especially when it was underground. But having said that, they still had certain elements that we've kept. And when they could come above ground and when they could build churches, they did. You do what you do when you can do it, and you do it properly.
Yeah. And so I like this layout, this parish church plan by St. Charles Borromeo, because you see the atrium, that porch, that drawing in section. It's a little more closed off looking in this drawing, but you can see that that's where we're going to come in. We're going to gather and get ourselves ready to have that transition from the world that we're living in to being closer to God and closer to Christ, and to kind of leave the world behind for a moment and step as close as we can to the veil of heaven. And then you work your way in, just like before. You have the nave, the narthex, the confessionals. I love how he added the little side chapels on either side here of the altar. Yeah. And then the sacristy on the side for the priest to get ready. And then the baptistry. kind of off and out to the side. That's where you're going to like take that first step to come into the church.
Yeah. And and sometimes, where were we? We were in France. I think it was this time around. Sometimes in some of the really old churches, the baptistry is a separate building.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not even part of the church, but it's extraordinarily beautiful. It's clearly a part. Oh, yes, I remember now. We were in Bordeaux, and I do remember the baptistry was right next to the church. I mean, it was kind of like a baby church.
Yeah, we're actually going to see some of those later.
Okay, yeah, okay. All
yeah,
right.
yeah.
I
know you're jumping ahead. You're so excited.
Yes.
All right, so I have this wonderful book by Aidan Hart. Alix, you actually know Aidan, yes?
And so do you.
Yeah, I know. Well, you knew him first. I got to meet him just last year for the first time. Love all the instructions in his book here, the techniques of icon and wall painting. But the illustration that he put here for the wall painting schema for the church just helped so much when I was helping our parish's architectural committee kind of work out a few ideas. What's the point? What are we trying to do? And it's a church that, didn't have that long nave look. So how are we going to take what's a theater layout and make it function, because there was no rebuilding the church right now.
Yeah.
But I love how he really laid out the fact that, everything is drawing us in to God and God to us. And you can see it in the arrows. That movement is just fabulous.
Exactly.
That's why we
lots
have
of
that
movement.
verticality.
Exactly. And also, I would say one thing that's interesting is the walls are not blank in a Catholic church, or they shouldn't be. They really shouldn't. Because
anytime I see a blank wall in a church, I want to start painting it.
Yeah. I mean, I think there are some exceptions, but I'm thinking specifically of Blackfriars in Oxford. But there are certain elements that are there, but it's not. Well, it's not even fair to say that walls are blank. They're not. There's a lot going on. It's just very subtle. But it's not just supposed to be like a white wall at all.
Yeah, no, it's got to have something there.
Yeah.
So when we get to the church, after we made our way through the gardens or the courtyard, we're welcomed by the door. That gate to heaven. It should be big. It should make us think that we're heading to something very different, something outside of this world.
Yeah.
And so here I have from the Valencia Cathedral, had an opportunity to go there, golly, too many years ago. Going to head back soon.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
It is gorgeous. Yeah. And then, of course, there's Durham Cathedral again.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful door there.
It is. And then, lots of interest on that door, but we'll talk about that when we talk about the cathedral. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Not going to give anything away.
And then the bell tower is from Frankfurt Cathedral. And that was my daughter got to go visit Germany recently. And so she sent me this picture, and I was just like, yeah, these are the things that greet you as you're coming to the church. You can feel how it's drawing you in, it's raising you up.
It is, and
are there.
And I think it speaks to the dignity of the people entering the church. Mm-hmm. I think sometimes they're not intimidating doors. I'm just thinking about, sometimes you go, I mean, not that I'm a big shopper. I'm not a big shopper. But, like sometimes if, you stumble, like I have, you stumble on these high streets and everything is super duper expensive, and you have all of these windows and doors of, like Chanel and, various other designers. Well, they're set up so that most people feel like they can't walk in. And that's intentional. But the church doors, everybody can walk in. And it looks like it's a feeling of coming home, no matter who you are. As I said, it speaks to the dignity of the person entering, and it speaks to the dignity of the church herself, and also of God, and the due reverence for both of them.
Yes, exactly. So here's some more doors. These are on the other side of the cathedral in Valencia. Do you love how different each door is?
Yes. I'm just
at a
taking
different
it
time.
all in. When was this cathedral built? Do you remember?
I don't remember right
I mean,
now,
it's
but
Gothic.
it was built over a long enough time period that we have different style doors.
Okay. There you go.
So,
it's old.
Yeah, it's old. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Love the statues. I love the figures around the doors.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like they're standing to attention. Yeah.
And the arch door, I loved how much that reminded me of Durham.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah. The same little chevron move and everything.
Exactly.
That's the awesome thing. I mean, this is in Spain.
Mm-hmm.
Durham's in northern England, and you can go
There's
anywhere
a connection.
in the world. There it is.
Yeah. So in other words, you could be from Spain and find yourself somehow in northern England in, say, the 14th century, and you'd be able to recognize it. There'd be a lot.
Yep.
You wouldn't be lost in that place.
Yeah. So another book to share here. So this is the Treasure and Tradition, The Ultimate Guide to the Latin Mass. So you get a little shine on there. But I love
Again,
this
we'll
book.
have the links. Yeah.
Yeah. Love this book for the pictures mostly. I'll admit that.
Okay. Well, that's okay.
Yeah. And I love that right off the bat in the book, they say all these pictures are in the public domain. So they've been around a while.
Okay. There you go. Yeah.
But this was the first time I saw this wonderful explanation of what else an archway should make you think of.
Mm.
And so here they have, in the larger, tall, narrow picture, you're basically showing like two arches of a church stacked on top of each other. And that should make you think about the mass of the catechumens. There we go. So those are people coming into the church. And then the mass of the faithful builds on top of that. And it's neat to think of an arch as you're in mass. So you're starting off with the prayers and praise that we're offering to God, taking us up. And then we're going to receive instruction in the listening to the epistles, the gospels. And so you get all of that in the sermon coming back to you. And then for the Mass of the Faithful, you have the offertory leading us up and then receiving the graces of God in the Eucharist. And I think that's just fabulous.
It is.
It just
it's
makes
wonderful.
you look at an arch in a different way.
It does. And also it shows the connection between the liturgy and the building.
Mm-hmm. And
that's why there are certain elements in the public space that need to be there. Well, in public worship, they need to be there.
Yeah. So I have two very different images here to show a narthex. So one very modern church. I happened to have been there just this past Sunday in another town in northern Michigan. So kind of a 1970s feel to it.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see the glass
very
partition.
American as well. I would say that's a very American style.
Yeah. And the glass partition there sets off where the narthex is from the nave. And just like the narthex was intended, it allows you to come in and like almost participate. You know, maybe you're not sure. You just want to walk in and maybe stand back there and see what's going on before you actually step in. And if you're stepping in through baptism, and they're going to have their baptismal font right around the narthex. The other narthex is in Chicago at St. John Cantius. And it has these three arched doors that are mimicking the doors on the outside of the church. So you get that flow where you have a little transition point and even some beautiful points of prayer here with the crucifix out front. And there are a couple other little niches around the sides. Mm-hmm.
I think. Yeah. Chair of Peter.
So
beautiful.
Very nice, way to like transition into the church.
Yeah. And they are two different. And I like that you've shown two very different examples of what it can be. So it's not, when we say it needs to, there needs to be these elements that need to be there, that doesn't mean they need to be cookie cutter elements, but they do need to be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now talking about going through that narthex, the baptism front. So the baptism, we've talked about some that are kind of set apart.
Yeah.
And, generally by the entryway. So in the center here is the baptismal font, right on the other side of the glass partition of the narthex. The one with the stained glass window to the left is at Holy Rosary Church that we saw the outside of. Now, they don't have enough space in their narthex area to keep it back under there. I know that they've thought about moving it there. They still put it by an entry door. But what I loved is they put it by the baptism of Christ stained glass window.
Yeah.
Get that connection going there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. And then he also has the holy water jug there for people.
Yeah.
And then the other on the right-hand side is the top portion of the baptismal font that was saved from the original church where I showed the courtyard trying to mimic the old church into the new. And so they brought the stained glass and the original baptismal font and put that stained glass partitions the narthex from the nave. And so they set that up there. So, what's interesting, though, is you look at all of these baptismal fonts, and they're all the same shape.
Yes. I noticed
What's up with these octagons?
I wonder, in fact, if you see a baptistry that's separated, in a separate building, it has 8 sides, too.
So there's something significant to this number 8. Do you know, Alix?
I do. It is the 8th day of creation. So it's connected to it's connected to the resurrection, correct?
To the resurrection,
yes. That's what I was going to, yeah.
And when we're baptized, we're born again in Christ.
Exactly. And so this octagon is supposed to, and also the number 8, and of course we'll talk about numbers at some point. It does have a connection with eternity as well. So it's all connected. It really is all connected. Yeah.
And then here's another beautiful dome. I know
this one.
Where is this one at?
This one is in Florence, is it not?
It is in Florence.
Yes, there you go. It's the Florentine Baptistry.
And the only reason why I put this in was just to real quick bring this all full circle or full octagon. And there in the close-up, you'll see the story of Joseph, which we talked about with the wallpaper, or not wallpaper, the wall painting.
The panel.
The panel, And then also the lights in heaven when we talked about the moon and the sun early on in some other episodes. So go back, check our other episodes out, and it's fun to see how everything all ties together.
Yeah, and that one, I'm just going to have to say, we're going to have to do maybe a deep dive on that.
Oh yeah.
Maybe I can. I don't think I'll have to really twist my husband's arm, but maybe we'll head to Italy, when the flights are cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we got to look at a few.
It's an extraordinary thing. Yeah.
We got to watch our time because we got to get ourselves actually in the church now. So we walk past the baptismal font and we actually get to step into the nave, and you can feel that open ship deck. We have these huge columns raising us up to heaven. And, rolling forward, as it were, with their arches taking us up toward the altar.
Yeah. It's almost like this. It's almost like a forest. It's beautiful. And get lost in it.
Yeah. So the one is from the inside of the cathedral in Frankfurt. So it's going to feel like a forest. They have a lot of forest around there.
Yeah.
And then the other one is the inside of the Shrine of Our Lady of Guadalupe. So fairly new design, but again, using the iconography of the past to bring all of it together. We want it to be timeless, even though it's new.
Exactly. Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful.
And then just to throw in there, wanted people to see there's all kinds of shapes of churches. So the church that had the glass partition for the narthex, that's the one on the left. And very American Alpine-ish looking style. But again, they have these ribbed vaults, so to speak, giving you that arched feeling. You
like
have that
boat.
moving forward. Yeah. So all those elements are still there. And then the one on the right, Alix.
Yes. So this is my local parish. This is St. Winifred's. And the photographs were provided by a dear friend of mine, Kati. So thank you very much, Kati. She's done a great job sending us all kinds of photos of it. But yes, so this is not the cathedral, which was designed by Pugin's son after Pugin's untimely death. But this is where we are now.
But still, it's mimicking the barrel vaulting that you would see in the past. It's funny because the first time I went in there, I felt as if I was higher off the ground because I felt like church was in the ceiling of an old cathedral. If that makes sense. That's
an interesting way to say it. I think the intention was to go back to the when Christians had to worship in the catacombs. So it's quite. It doesn't have that verticality, that element that you need. It really doesn't.
It's definitely fortified though, so it has that element.
It does. Okay. Oh, and here's two other ones. So.
Yeah, you talk about these because these are your finds.
So this is the inside of Saint-Germain in Arras, France. And like I said, we'll go into what's so extraordinary about this church. This is a tiny, tiny church, and yet it does have that verticality. Every pew was overflowing when we were there. And it does. It lifts you up. The building itself, and they ring the bells during the consecration, and it's extraordinary.
Nice.
And it kind of the whole place vibrates. And so that's very different. This church, like I said, would have been very similar, I think, to St. Winifred's when it was built. Even though this is 1,000 years old, it would have been for a local rural community, a small community, not the major focus of the cathedral. So in that way, it's very similar to St. Winifred's. You know, we're as our canon says, we are not a big community. We're just a very small community, but we work really hard to be a faithful community. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now this crazy one over here that looks like it's got a hunting lodge kind of feel.
Oh yeah, this is a stavkirke in Norway. I have not gone to this one. This is the Lom stavkirke, but they were all made out of wood, and we're talking about permanence, right? But what's interesting is some of these stavkirke, the ones that were not destroyed, they're over 1,000 years old, and they're made out of wood, and the wood is just laid on top of a stone, which is staff is like a staff.
Wow.
And they're unique to Norway, and they are based on the old Viking chieftain's house. So the big gathering place where the community would be. And so they took elements of that because that's what that was appropriate for that community, for that culture. And they made it something sacred. And stavkirke are so beautiful. Oh, talk about feeling like you are there's nothing else like a stavkirke.
We're going to have to deep dive one of those,
Oh, absolutely. Happily.
Yeah. And then this one, this picture was taken by my husband several years ago. He had gone to San Francisco for a conference, and he ended up in St. Patrick's in San Francisco. And this church was built for the Irish immigrant community that was heading to the West Coast. And what's fascinating about this and what blew my husband away, and he's like, because I can't put it in words, you got to see this. At each pillar, look at each pillar, there's a statue of a saint. And he goes, he tried to get as many in as he could.
Yeah.
And if anything brings home that those pillars and columns have always represented people. So
Yes.
these columns are the procession of saints that are accompanying us on the way. We're in this nave on the ship working our way. But here's the great cloud of witnesses, the saints coming with us.
Yes, and helping
love
us.
this.
Yes.
It's
and,
awesome.
and they're part of the structure of the church as well.
Yep.
They're,
Yeah.
we all
awesome.
are a part of the body of Christ.
Yep.
Excellent.
Okay. And we have another photo here in the middle from your friend, Kathy.
Yes. And this
So I want to
it's
show some of the
interesting.
other elements you find in the nave.
Yes. Okay.
So we have windows, the Stations of the Cross, and I love the window in your church that it has this beautiful carving.
It does, and it's actually so. This church was built when there was a quite a large Irish migration into the Shropshire, Shrewsbury area in like the 1950s, 1960s, and I think the relationship. I think it's not overstating the fact that the relationship between the Irish, and particularly Irish Catholics in Britain in general has been difficult. And I think, actually, not to get too into it, I think this church actually is a reflection of that as well. So rather than have this Irish community attend church at the cathedral, because of the numbers, I'll just say that because of the numbers, they decided, well, we're going to build another church, and this is what they built for the Irish community. But so that's around I think this was built in 1956. I could be wrong, and so the carving is actually not a carving; it's cement.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's a poured cement mold, and
Wow.
I think it's pretty good.
Yeah,
It's definitely
works.
permanent.
Yeah.
But it's not, but they didn't have the funds to build, to invest that sort of thing into this building and into this community.
All right, we're going to have to talk more on those later. The only thing I wanted to put in here is just to show the difference in style between different Stations of the Cross. These are lovely tiles, right? In your church? Are they tiles?
Yes. No, again, they're like, no, they're not tiles. They are molded. They're like plaster of Paris, molded.
All right. And then the one I put here is probably also plaster, very common use in the U.S., the horsehair plaster. There wasn't the availability of marble for carving and things. And so they would do very elaborate horsehair plaster.
Yeah, they figure out what things to do.
Pretty strong.
Yeah.
All right, so one quick thing we got to talk about here is the choir. So
yes,
in early churches, the choir would have been in the space, and I think we'll probably have an image of that, in the space between the nave and the altar. And that's because the choir was traditionally made up of the clergy.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
Up in that front portion.
Or whatever religious order was predominant.
So just two different quick comparisons here. The choir this is Birmingham Oratory. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, on the upper left. And this was the first time I had seen the organ set off to that side chapel area almost. And was the full choir up there also?
Yeah.
Okay. And then the other image.
I think it's called a primitive choir because it was kind of where it was originally. We're used to having them in the back behind us, and then kind of the music falls down onto you. But I think originally, and when I say originally, I'm talking about, in Jerusalem, original. It was, when they had some singing, it was up closer. Yeah.
Yep. Well, this also mimics something that we'll see with the Byzantine outline that we'll see in a moment. And then this elaborate, huge double layer choir loft is at St. John Cantius in Chicago. And I was there for a high mass, and yes, the sound just rolls down over you and takes you to the altar. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And then here's kind of again from the book from Peter Anson, here's a kind of a layout of a 14th century English parish church. And you can see the highlighted area where the choir would have been set up. And again, it traditionally would be the clergy in the choir.
Yes.
It wasn't until very recent in history that it was the laity that was part of the choir. And so that's where get a little change for the location.
Yeah. And I was also thinking, if you go someplace, again, so when I go down to Blackfriars, all the friars come out and, they sit in the choir and they sing. I mean, we do too, but so you will see that, like I said, if you go to a church that is connected with a religious order,
yes,
you'll still see that today.
And it's actually, I think I read it in canon law. Somebody will have to check it for me. That cathedrals in particular are supposed to have a religious order affiliated with them. And so you would see a lot of central front choirs like that with the cathedral, since they would have
and that makes religious to be sense.
They'd be chanting the liturgy of the hours. So they need a spot to do that in. So I'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons, because just like all these churches can't happen without patrons, this show doesn't happen without patrons either. So we'd like to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Sacred Art, including Father Eric F., Militant Millennial, love that name.
Yeah.
Rachel S., Patrick L., and Michael H. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Sacred Art and all the shows at StarQuest, and you can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. All right, so moving on next, as you transition from the nave, there's generally not really line in the sand, but just a partition to let you know when it's changing. It's something a little more happening here.
Something's different.
Something different, something more. So I have an example of a rood screen, and then that's the full partition across. It has the little statuaries across the top, and the crucifix flanked on either side by Mary and St. John, and then the little partial walls. And the best description I ever heard, and I think it was from Pugin, talked about the rood screen to think of it as a window into heaven. It's that glimpse into that moment. And then I think in the center there, we've shared this one before in earlier podcasts. This is just what's left of. Was there a full rood screen in Shrewsbury at one point in time?
Yes, there was. Yeah.
So they've left the rood, the cross. Yeah, and then the Birmingham Oratory again. There's the communion rail, so you can see how it transitions through time, and that's something that happens. The architecture is fluid and growing like a tree as the church grows, but at the same time should always be timeless in what we know and believe, because you can't change the symbol without changing the meaning.
Exactly.
That's important.
Oh,
now,
wow.
I wanted to show a little similarities with East and West. And I hope that our viewers will take the time, pause, look through these different elements to see the similarities, to see the movement, the nave. And again, like I mentioned earlier, this kind of shows where the canting would be off to one side, they actually have like an installation for the cantor. They're not just whoever volunteers that day, so there's a little bit more to it.
Now, are the cantors, would that be like a deacon or a priest, or do you know if there would be laity?
Oh, even like a layer below that. Yeah, there can be laity that have been appointed to be.
Okay.
Yeah. So great opportunity to pause, take your time, look at the similarities, and see what the East has that's like the West.
Exactly. I kind of like label number 12, beautiful gates. That kind of makes you, that's what they have to be.
Exactly.
So it can't just be any gate. It has to be a beautiful gate. I really like that.
Yeah, and it's not there to exclude. It's there to invite you to something more.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Because we're drawn to beauty.
Yeah. And then just some little transition also within the space as we're heading toward the altar is you have the ambo or lectern or pulpit. Is there a difference? Yes and no. People interchange those words all the time now, a lot more fluidly than they used to. Pulpits are usually found on the left side of a sanctuary, so that sometimes they're on the left front of the nave, and sometimes they're freestanding, built into the side of the wall or on a column. Sometimes they have a lot of steps going up to them, sometimes just one step up or no step at all. And a lot of the really good old ones are designed for acoustics so that they do not need a microphone. And I wish they would not use microphones in those, because my ears would be so much happier to hear actual natural acoustics over amplified acoustics. So then we have a lot of different ambos here, which is neat. The one from your church, Alix, I like how they had the little book stand in front. Oops, I lost your sound, Alix.
How about now?
There you go.
Oh, okay. I was wondering. Okay. I was like, why?
Yeah, you were muted for a moment there. Sorry if you were talking.
No. Actually, I was. Okay. Well, it's just as well. Yes. So we actually share the church with some of the other dioceses in Shrewsbury. So we kind of have everything a little bit combined. But yes, we have space for the book, and in the middle photograph of that's from Saint Germain in Oros, and that ambo, it really doesn't show it very much in the picture, but it's actually quite high up. It's way above my head, and you see how narrow it is. And when the priest started walking up those very wobbly steps, I thought, oh wow.
Oh really? It moved?
Oh yeah. Well, not the ambo, but the steps behind it.
Wow.
I was quite, and he was fine. Maybe he figured, well, these have been here for the last 300 years. They'll be fine.
Yeah, sure.
Today's not going to be the day I fall off. But anyway, yeah. So there are lots of different styles.
Yeah. And then the other little picture there is an ambo from church. I had done the ambo icon. They had a book slot, but it wasn't really functioning to like set the book of the Gospels there. And so they had asked, what can we put there? And so we did Christ in Majesty with the 4 gospel creatures around him. And yeah, it worked out really well. And it was nice when people said they were happy to have something to look at while they were listening to the Gospels being read. And it kind of helped focus their prayer.
Yeah.
All right, sanctuaries.
Yes.
Wow. They are so different and similar and beautiful all at the same time.
Yes, they are.
Put 3 different ones here just to show the similarities, differences. And I like that I have at least people in 2 of these, so you can see the scale. So the first one on the left is St. John Cantius. Huge reredos. Beautiful
Is that
paintings.
in Chicago? That's in Chicago.
In Chicago, yep.
Yeah.
They have the big golden dome above. And this is all carved wood. It's massive feeling.
Yeah.
But it still has the same elements that you'll see in all the others, where it has, this one has a centrally located tabernacle. I mean, the tabernacle is supposed to be in a prominent place.
Yes, it is.
It houses the Most Holy Eucharist. It should be beautiful. It should be decorated. It'd be something that people see. So unless your tabernacle has a beautiful chapel of reserve, it needs to be right there in front. Just beautiful to see. And then they even have a lovely drape that gets changed with the different seasons. And then in the center here is the inside of Holy Rosary. You can see it's Polish founding in the arch there, where it says, Queen of the Most Holy Rosary, pray for us, in Polish.
Yeah.
And then they have a canopy and a like a dossal curtain. And that gets changed with the seasons. This green one is a little hard to see that it's green, but the lighting on it's really reflective. And again, central tabernacle. They have the candle step so that it holds the different candles. Now, obviously not as large as what you see at St. John Cantius, but it's saying the same thing, and it has the steps leading up to the altar. And then the last one is the interior of the Shrine of Our Lady of Guadalupe in Wisconsin. And this one has, just like in St. Peter's, the baldacchino. I hope I said that right.
Yeah, it's almost like a canopy. It's
like
it's to mimic like the tabernacle or the tent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And all meant to highlight what's happening here on the altar is the most important thing that's happening. You know, this is of full honor and due that it should have this extra step to it.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
So everything should draw your eye right to what matters.
Exactly.
You know, why you're here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, there's so many parts to the sanctuary that we can jump in and go through all of them. At some other time, we can just say, here's everything, all the little parts.
Yeah.
I used to do coloring pages with my catechism class, and I will be putting a link in our show notes that takes you to a little black and white photo, detailed description of candles and stands and all the things that are within the sanctuary.
Yeah, there's just so many different elements. So much goes into that one focus, that one, everything is pointing to that one thing. And the more things that are pointing to what's happening on the altar, the better.
Yeah. And with every church we talk about in later episodes, we'll go a little deeper into the details. So we'll have some time to really focus in and point out these different elements. Excuse me. Then I wanted to end with this image. So this was a picture that was taken at about 3 o'clock in the morning, maybe 4 o'clock in the morning, by someone who was arriving for adoration.
Wow.
And the light that was lighting up the crucifix on the top was casting a shadow on, I think these were winter clouds that were just above the church. And I mean, that was like a beacon to anyone in the area for miles around. And just a great testament to, that's the city on the hill and shining out for everyone.
And it almost looks like a monstrance, which I think is so cool.
Yeah.
I wonder if that was planned when they did that lighting, or if it was, I mean, I don't know. It's just such an extraordinary thing. I think that's the
first time that's happened. I mean,
oh, wow.
It went all through. like social media and everybody's cell phones, as soon as, someone took that picture, they're sharing it, and it was all over the place.
Was this in 2020 that this happened?
I don't remember what year it was. It wasn't that long ago. So it could have been.
No. I remember you sent it to me.
That's right. I did send it to you because it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
It really makes us think about, again, from the Catechism of the Catholic Church, these visible churches are not simply gathering places, but signify and make visible the church living in this place, the dwelling of God with men reconciled and united in Christ.
Yeah.
It's not just a little building. It's alive.
It is with us in it, but the building itself, because, it's all part, the material world is good. And these are things that help. The elements of the church and the way they're laid out, they're supposed to help us become holy. They're supposed to, it's one more aid that we've been given by Holy Mother Church so that we can all be saints. And so it really, really matters. It matters that it makes sense. It matters that it is consistent, and that it speaks to as I said, it speaks to the dignity of the people going into the church. And it also speaks to the dignity and reverence due to God.
Mm-hmm. I hope that our listeners, viewers will, maybe snap a picture. What does your sanctuary look like? What does your nave look like? Or the narthex? Or maybe you have a beautiful garden out front that you'd like to share. We'd love to see what you have out there. Yeah,
because there are all kinds of ways to get it right. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of churches that do get it right. I think sometimes we focus on some of the things that are wrong, but there are a lot of places all over the world, in the United States, in Europe, and they've gotten it right, and they continue to get it right. Thanks be to God. So
and we love hearing your feedback. We had some good feedback from someone just recently. We did,
and it's so nice that we always ask for feedback, and we're really interested in it. And it's nice. This was one that really touched us both. So we want to take some time to share some feedback from Annie in Illinois, and I'll just read a little bit of what she said. She said, "I've always thought of altarpieces as picture books." So this is in reference to our episodes on the Ghent altarpiece. Like all the other art in Catholic churches, I don't know what century my ancestors learned to read, but I imagine that they were Catholic generations before that. I enjoy looking at Catholic art and feeling connected to my ancestors. A picture Bible is telling a sequence of stories, one after another, like a storyboard. But something masterful like the Ghent altarpiece may go deeper. Seen one way, it is a faint glimmer of what all of human history looks like to God. So now it's definitely on my bucket list, and it should be on your bucket list. It's on my bucket list.
Oh, mine too.
And I just want to encourage you, Annie, and anybody else, if you really did pick up on the whole idea of it being like a Bible picture book, take a listen to episode number 4, the story of the Joseph panels, A Tale Torn Asunder. And that actually, we go into something exactly like that. I think you'll enjoy that. And I'm going to thank you.
If you want to add a little something Bible to it, listen to, I think it's days 20 through 22 of the Bible in a year, because he's reading the story of Joseph. And so when I was listening to it the last couple of days, right away I went right to that beautiful panels that we talked about.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be nice if one day they could just come back together, get the band
just
together?
One time.
Yes. Yeah. So I want to thank you for listening to the Secrets of Sacred Art on StarQuest. To find previous episodes of Secrets of Sacred Art and to send feedback, please visit sqpn.com/sacredart. You can send us comments by email at sacredart@sqpn.com, or by leaving us a comment on YouTube, or by visiting our channel on the StarQuest Discord community at sqpn.com/discord. We'll be back next time when we'll be discussing the Gothic revival in the United States as we take an in-depth look at St. Anne de Troyes. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Detroit. Detroit. Until then, I'm Alix Murray.
And I'm Kathryn Laffrey, hoping you find something beautiful.
Bye-bye.
Bye.